I was already having trouble with Adam being gone because we'd been together since birth. I quit work a week before he came, so and I'd stay up till 4 a.m. playing video games with him. And this night was really not any different, but he went in the party, so I just texted him at 3:30 in the morning, I think, hoping he'd respond.
So I was watching TV when the Ring doorbell went off, and I looked through and I saw 3 Loudoun County Sheriff's deputies. And honestly, I thought, oh, something must have happened in the neighborhood and they wanted my video. So I opened the door and they asked if they could come in. And that's when, they had said, is your wife here? We need to get your wife, and we need to talk to you. And I can just imagine millions of things were going through my head,
Because when he came to get me from my room, he said, the sheriffs are here and I think it's something bad. So then I just got up and followed him down the hall. I know the neighbors heard it. The door was open and he just was screaming, no, that isn't happening.
We were at lunch for my daughter's 9th birthday at her favorite restaurant. And my mom picks up her phone because she gets an alert on it. And it's a social media, it's a Facebook message. And it's from one of Linda and Eric's friends and Adam's friends' moms. And she says, is it true what happened to Adam? And immediately my mom's like, what is going on? What is she talking about? But in my head, it just clicked. Like I knew something bad had happened to him.
Yeah, I remember it very clearly. I remember receiving the call that it involved an off-campus incident involving the death of a student. And initially I received information that potentially it was alcohol related.
It was just a complete shock. We were devastated. Adam was our only child. You always think of what would life be without me, and how would my family and how would my friends, and he's left a big hole in our lives.
He was never your typical 18, 19-year-old kid, because it's not that I don't think kids his age have this, but he just had a lot of it, and it was a lot of love.
He actually volunteered when he was 17 to run a youth league basketball team. And he was afraid, he wasn't sure how he was gonna do, and the commissioner was like, well, we usually don't let kids unless the parents do it. And I said, you don't understand, he's more responsible than me. So they ended up letting him and another boy coach the team, and he had such an impact on their life. They showed up to his funeral. They were 13 and 14-year-old boys, and they liked Adam.
I think what the worst part about hazing is that it's always done because it was done before. So it's this vicious cycle. I went through it, I survived, you should be able to survive too.
The fraternities, they add pressure on everybody. I can talk about that night, which, they announced his name and they announced his big brother, and then they shared what they call the family drink. Nobody saw what was poured in the cup, nobody knew what it was. And then there's 40 young men all standing around yelling, chug, chug, chug. What is a 19-year-old that, has been sequestered in his house for the last 2 years because of COVID supposed to supposed to do?
Well, alcohol poisoning really implies an alcohol overdose, and that would mean the consumption of too much alcohol. That could be different amount of alcohol for different people, but it means that you now have undesired or potentially harmful effects after consuming too much alcohol. Peer pressure is very common among young people, and young people in particular have an underappreciation of consequences of behaviors, and that's a dangerous combination.
So hazing is the intentional, recklessly endangering an individual's life or inflicting injury based on affiliation or acceptance into a group or organization. And I think a lot of students feel like hazing is necessary as a rite of passage, or students feel like they have to go through that often abusive process for some sense of belonging.
Young people need to understand that this is a drug, and if you take increasing doses or more and more alcohol, that the effects can be devastating. And unfortunately, they need to look at bad outcome events that happen as wake-up calls to realize that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to push somebody until they're unconscious or to push somebody until they start to vomit. That is beyond having fun, beyond sociable, beyond simply a rite of passage of being a college student. That there are inherent dangers as you increase the dose of alcohol as it would be with any other drug.
The big brother's supposed to look after you, and so is the president. They're supposed to stay and make sure you're okay. That there's so many things that they did wrong that night. They were afraid that they were going to get the fraternity or themselves in trouble, and they needed to render help to him, and they didn't.
Adam's Law was created because there was 4 things that Adam needed that night that Adam didn't have. One was a clear hazing education, an effective hazing education. There was a webinar that VCU did provide students, but it was left up to the president of the organization to share that with the kids. And so Adam's president of his organization failed to share that with him and at least 2 other boys. And then the boys that did receive it, they were basically said, I have something to do, and that was that kind of thing. So he did not have access to a hazing education. Another thing is the bystander intervention. That's a huge piece of Adam's Law.
Well, bystander intervention is very important. And as healthcare providers, we're always most concerned with the welfare of patients. And so we would strongly encourage anybody who's with someone who has too much to drink or excess of any other drug to not leave that person alone. And with alcohol in particular, if the person is passed out or not responding to you, is difficult to wake up, is having any kind of difficulty breathing, or has vomited or is continuing to vomit, that person should not be left alone, and that would be a call for 911.
I just really believe if you see something, say something, and don't be afraid to call 911. And that's exactly why we had in Adam's Law, we carved out a section of that where the person will get, amnesty, or they won't get charged, they won't get kicked out of school, for doing the right thing.
There's a Virginia code section for medical amnesty, and the purpose of that code section is exactly so students can get involved without the risk of arrest and criminal prosecution.
So part of Adam's Law now says that all universities have to put a student hazing conduct report on their website that's easily accessible for parents, students, and caregivers. And so the last part is that they have to send these conduct reports to the Piazza Center. And the Piazza Center creates a national scorecard of all hazing events in all organizations across the nation. So that means, for example, Delta Chi. Every incident of hazing at all Delta Chis across the nation that get reported to the Piazza Center are all on this national card. So parents, again, can go to the Piazza Center, see the national card, see the history of hazing, and make better decisions.
We're a mess.
I've been in bed for 2 years. And we're totally opposite. I don't want to think about it. I usually have a TV going and a game going and all this so I can stay out of my head. And he needs to stay busy, because when he's not, that's when he really thinks about his boy, right?
I miss him so much.
So the Love Like Adam Foundation was a way for us to honor Adam, but to also make sure that no other family goes through what we went through. And that is by educating. So we looked at who best to educate. And so we were thinking university students, but we're also thinking it needs to start sooner rather than later. So our focus is on high school and university students, and we want to educate them on the dangers of hazing, but also how to identify it, also the impact that it has. So why is it being done? Like, why do people engage in hazing? But then also what it does to people too. And not just the physical piece, but the psychological piece too, because it psychologically impacts people as well. And I think it's important for kids to know that.
The big thing about our foundation is we really want to bring out the education on hazing prevention, and giving the kids the tools that they need to try and identify hazing, get yourself out of it, have some skills, teach them some skills, and then just remind them to be good people. You don't like that being done to you, why would you do it to someone else? Our goal is to make sure every student, there's 600,000 students in Virginia, get hazing education. And that's K through 12 and public and private. We really want to make sure that everybody understands that this was 100% preventable.
When people pass, we talk about all these good things about them. But every ounce of good that we talk about Adam is true. We would have said to him, it's just how he was. It's just the person that he was. And I feel like that is really his spirit.